The first set of Canadians has crossed the Rafah border from Gaza into Egypt. It comes as Israeli troops continue airstrikes and ground attacks in the conflict against Hamas, and as citizens mark the one-month anniversary of Hamas's attack on Israel. Kyle Benning joins us now with more details. So Kyle, what do we know about how many Canadians have been able to enter Egypt?
Miranda, like you said, the first set of Canadians has been able to leave Gaza. Global Affairs Canada says that initial number is between 20 to 25, and that group has reached into Egypt. Now, the government says this comes after a lot of work with its partners in the region, including Egypt, Israel, and Qatar, who has been mediating with Hamas. Now, today there were 320 foreign nationals and people with ties to other countries who were approved to cross through Gaza. 80 people on that list were Canadian or had ties to Canada, with 20 of those being citizens.
I know families and loved ones have been waiting anxiously. Finally, the first group of Canadians were evacuated out of Gaza. They were met by Canadian diplomats on the Egyptian side of the border. I would like to thank my Egyptian, Israeli, and Qatari counterparts for making this operation successful.
Now, that was Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly, who was in Tokyo for the G7 Foreign Affairs ministerial meeting that's taking place, where this conflict in the Middle East is expected to take headlines in all the discussions taking place. Now, Canada's International Development Minister also said that he hopes that this initial group of Canadians making their way into Egypt will help build momentum to allow the remaining Canadians to get out. And the initial Canadians were supposed to head out on Sunday, but because of strikes taking place in and around the region, the border was completely closed on both Saturday and Sunday, reopening yesterday. Now, Global Affairs Canada says there are about 600 people with ties to Canada, whether that's citizens, permanent residents, or their families, who are seeking their help to try and get out of the territory. Miranda?
All right, so Kyle, what happens now to this first group of Canadians? Have officials clarified how they can travel to Canada?
Well, as soon as they cross into Egypt, they will be met by consular officials. And from there, they will be bused into Cairo, and they'll be allowed to stay within Egypt for up to 3 days. Now, Ottawa says it will cover the costs of that bus trip, of food, shelter, and basic necessities like medicine. And after that, all of the people who have made it in with the help of Global Affairs Canada will have to pay for their own travel to get out of the country and make their final destination back to Canada. Now, Canadians at the gate who we spoke with some of our partners on the ground at the Rafah crossing today says this last month has been absolutely gut-wrenching.
It's just a very scary feeling, and you don't know what's happening with your family and how they're feeling. And you always get butterflies in your stomach because you don't know what's happening and when you're gonna go and when it's gonna end, or you don't have any information about what's gonna happen in the future.
Now, Global Affairs Canada says there are 6 Canadians who have died as a result of attacks taking place in Israel. That number hasn't changed in recent days, but there are still 2 Canadians missing, expected to be among the hostages being held by Hamas. Global Affairs Canada also said it hasn't noted whether any Canadians have died as a result of Israeli military strikes taking place within Gaza. Now, while this is also the first group of Canadians to leave the territory, people have been able to cross since Wednesday afternoon. The U.S. State Department says it has helped up to 400 of its citizens and people with ties to the U.S. leave the territory since Wednesday. Miranda.
All right, Kyle, thank you very much for that important update.
Thank you, Miranda.
That is our Kyle Benning joining us from the newsroom.